everyone, and welcome to our chat about paper 2. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're going to make this easier. So these papers are 15, 16 pages long, and sometimes they seem like a mountain and that you'll never be able to conquer them. Well, we're going to learn how we can do that. So let's first look at what we're up against here. So if we look at a mountain, a lot of times a mountain is just nothing more than plateaus and going up to another plateau, or grains of sand that make up a huge sand mountain. So if we try to kind of tear that down and break it apart a little bit, we can make it easier. So the first thing that I want to point out is that we really have three main aspects, which is one, the Marinus values, the second one is the learning outcomes, and the third element that you need is the rubric. So we're going to look at each one of those individually, and then we're going to look at how we can integrate those. So here I have just really small snapshots of each of the three elements that have to come together or that are going to be important for this paper. First off, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the rubric for this second paper. And what this is doing is it tells you exactly what you need in the paper to be able to get either a score of 1, 2, or 3. So I've kind of taken the liberty of highlighting column 3 because I do believe that you all probably are trying to attain that in your papers. And so if you look at the difference between 1 and 2, even for the introduction, you can see that it says for a 1, introduction is not present. If present, it does not clearly indicate the focus of the paper. So just like I talked about before, and which we're going to go into a little bit more, is that in your introduction, you must have your thesis statement. In other words, what is the purpose of this paper? And if you are not sure exactly how to write a thesis statement, you can always Google it. You can look on Purdue OWL page. That'll give you some really clear guidelines. But really, what a thesis statement is something that tells the audience or the readers what exactly the paper is going to be about and why it's important. And so if we look at that it's not really clear, and which would be a score of 1, as opposed to introduction is at least 3 sentences in length. Introduction clearly is indicated, focuses of paper, or the focus of the paper is clearly indicated and expanded upon. So really, three sentences for an introduction is way too short. It should be at least 5 to 7, if not even 2 paragraphs. But generally, if you do a nice introduction with a nice thesis statement, you will be just fine. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about how this paper is going to come together. So the idea is not to write about the outcomes and then write about the Marinus values. What Dr. Santi wants is he wants these things paired up. And so whether he did this on purpose, if he did, thank you, Dr. Santi, because this was an excellent idea. But as you can look at the learning outcomes for the program, it has 7 of them. So if your paper is supposed to be 15 or 16 pages long, that basically means that you should be talking about each one of these major topics for 2 pages. So that should be your goal, is to do basically 7 two-page mini assignments. So that's one way that we can break it down. Now, the other thing in the rubric is if you start reading through it, it says that within a paragraph that there should be an indication of the Marinus values and how they are kind of married up with the learning outcomes. So let's kind of look at what does that mean. So if we wanted to do 2 of them, I'm going to read out that first Marinus values. And as I'm reading, I want you to start thinking about what does that really mean? What is that telling me? How does that apply to life? How does that apply to maybe a future job that I'm going to get? How does that apply to the program learning outcomes? What are the program learning outcomes? What is the meaning of the program learning outcomes? the meaning of the program learning outcomes is that in your 4 years that we want you to learn this information so that you can apply it, so that you understand it, so that when you go out into the field and you're the expert, that you have something to say and that you have a good, solid input. So we have the Marinus values supporting all of this education that you're learning. And your learning is for a reason. You didn't come to university for 4 years just to sit around and eat licorice, correct? There might have been some other reasons besides just learning, social aspects. However, the bulk of your experience here is to make your learning count and to take it with you and to better the world when you go out in the world. So let's read this first education, Marinus education values. So educate the formation in faith. Educate for formation in faith. Catholic universities affirm an intricate relationship between reason and faith. As important as discursive and logic formulations and critical thinking are, they are not able to capture all that can be and ought to be learned. So what does that tell us right there? That there's more to learning than just what we learn in a classroom. So let's go on. Intellectual rigor coupled with respectful humility provide a more profound preparation for both career and life. Intellectual rigor characterizes the pursuit of all that can be learned. Okay, so intellectual rigor. So that means methodical thinking about what you have learned and being humble enough to understand that what you have learned, that once you go out into the world, is not only for yourself, but to help others. So it's a bridge. So, and then it goes on, respectful humility reminds people of faith, that they need to learn from those who are of other faiths and cultures, as well as for those who may have no religious faith at all. So what is that telling us? Respect for diversity. To try to understand other people by maybe understanding their perspective, their point of views, and being appreciative of diversity and being appreciative of diverse views. All right, so let's take that in that very short paragraph and let's think about where would you apply those in your program learning outcomes. Why would those aspects be important? So from that short paragraph, which is what you're going to be focusing on, is we learned that you need to be open to others, that you need to understand that your learning is purposeful and has not only can be meaningful to you, but will be meaningful to others, that you are going to be able to use this for skills, and that we don't always learn everything in the classroom. So in other words, be mindful of what's going on around you and how you can take all of that good stuff that you learned in the classroom and how you can apply it in many situations, and maybe not even just apply it as a one-size-fits-all, but how you can expand your knowledge to be able to relate to perhaps one particular person or to understand a particular group of people. So where would you use those sort of skills? The first thing that came to mind for me was to look over and let's see, which one did I pick? Right away I thought that this would be great for counseling. So because what do we learn in counseling? One, we learn that we're there to use our skills to help other people. Two, that we have to respect diversity, because if we're counselors, then, and we go in and we tell somebody, well, you need to listen to my counseling style and you need to listen to what I do, that's not going to work for everybody, because different cultures, different religions, you know, male, female, counseling kids as opposed to adults is all going to be different. So we have to be able to adapt our way of thinking, and we have to be able to adapt our learning. And we have to respect other people, too, for their beliefs. So, you know, that could be one. So you might say, I'm going to pair up the education for formation in faith and the counseling theory. Or you might even say, you know, that's really good too, and I think I can even integrate a little bit of, which is the other one that's really good. The Educate for Adaptation to Change might also fit in counseling, since we know that finding new ways of doing therapy is always changing. So what I would recommend is that you do what's called a T, and you just take a little T-bar like this. Oh, my drawing's not so good. And on one side over here, you can put down all these topics right here and write them 1 through 7, and then match them up with whichever educational values, and write those going this way. Well, these are going this way too. Write these. Oh, I'm a horrible screen drawer. Okay, so now that we know that I have no screen drawing skills, we can move on. But what the point is that start matching them up. Get your topic of whatever it is that you want to talk about. If it's counseling that you're going to talk about, then your first title is going to be Counseling and the Marinus Values. And so then get your second topic, and then just keep going down and look at your 7 here. The other thing is too is note that when you have the 7, I don't know how to do the eraser on this. Oh, okay, well we're going to leave that. When you do have the 7, is that you also have the sub areas too. So if you're looking at, say, social and cultural psychology, you might interweave the social and cultural psychology a little bit, or you can pick just one that falls under that major header. Same thing with psychology as the integrated system. We know that we have the skills and competencies of the senior seminar. And so that's your integrated competencies, what you have learned really from what we're learning here. So you could even use some of the taking sides that we've talked about, or you could use that as far as any support material if you wanted to use that book too. Let's see. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about everything on this page. Let's go to the next slide. So, if you think about it, really all you're doing is you're putting a story together. And you are telling the story of how these Marinus values, which if you read through them, a lot of them relate to human relations. Relates to dignity, it relates to respect, it relates to adaptation to change, to the family spirit. So this is at the very, very foundation of what you're going to be writing about. And in psychology, that shouldn't be that hard, because what is it that we are trying to do in psychology? We are trying to respect people. We are trying to have people feel a sense of community, a sense of belonging. So all of those sort of things should be encompassed in your paper. So think of it as putting together a description of what things that you would see or how they would relate in a big picture, or what that picture is comprised of. So I would suggest that as you start your paper, that you think of certain things that you might want to talk about in counseling, and then you focus on the Marinus values and how those values support the outcomes from counseling, or the outcomes from lifespan development. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Here we go. Okay, your paper isn't exactly going to look like this, but I wanted to put these in because I wanted to show you. So you're going to have your abstract, your introduction. Right after that should be the scientific methods and its application, then lifespan development, then applied psychology. And all of these should be approximately 2 pages long, give or take a quarter of a page. So if you go over a little bit, you can go under a little bit on one of them. Or you can go up to 16 pages if you want to keep writing. But this is really what it's going to look like. So the other thing is when people write in a scholarly fashion, for some reason they think it needs to look like this great big run-on paper. And I don't know about you, but when I pick up a paper and I see these nice headers put in there, and then I know what section I'm going to be reading, and then I know what the next section is going to be, I like that. And I will tell you, a lot of professors like that too. For one, it directs the reader. For two, it keeps you contained in your writing. There's nothing worse than when a writer gets going and all of a sudden they have run-on of the brain. And so what happens is they think that they're going in the right direction, but they started in cross-cultural, and before you know it, they end up in lifespan development. So it keeps you focused. So use these, the ones that are bolded here, use these as your major headers. So I should see these in your table of contents. And so use those to really kind of focus the areas. Okay, let's see. The other thing, the next thing that's going to be important for you is to look at, I don't know why this is not advancing for me. To look at, whoops, back one. To look, this just does not want to go backwards for me. Okay, let me go back one more. Okay, so 1, 2, this is the slide I want. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the other thing is, and it's not absolutely mandatory, but I would really, really like to see some sort of outline. I don't care if it is just a really quick outline of your thoughts, of what you want to put in it. Please send me an outline. That way I can make any tweaks to the paper, or I can tell you, yes, you're headed in the right direction, or no, not quite. Because this is going to be the most important paper that you do. I don't want you to get to the end of this paper and for me to say, nope, your integration's not there. So I would like for you to hand in an introduction, oops, spelling mistake, sorry. I would like for you to hand in an outline and let me know exactly what you're going to be doing your outline on. I've provided a similar outline. So of course, like it says right here, in your introduction, you're going to have your thesis statement. Then your body is going to contain all 7 of those program learning outcomes that we talked about. And then you'll have your conclusion. So please go ahead and get this done as soon as you can. We are getting down there, and I know that it seems like we're only on week 6, but we've got week 6 for the paper and the outline. Then you've got week 7, 8, and 9, and then week 10 you're going to be taking the final test. So if you can get those things into me early, then I can be correcting and helping you to go over areas of your paper that might need a little redoing or a touch-up. So it's going to be really critical that you get these into me as soon as you can. So please, we want happy faces for everybody, and please get these into me so that these papers are done exactly according to the rubric. If you follow the rubric, you cannot go wrong. If you follow the steps that I have just given you, you cannot go wrong. So 7 little short 2-pagers to integrate everything in a nice, neat package. Every paragraph should have the topic of the learning outcome supported by the Marinus values. Do your T table and write down your outcomes on one side, and on the other side, jot down the Marinus values you're going to be discussing on how they support the learning outcomes. If you follow this and you do your paper constructed this way, then you will have an excellent paper. The APA format is provided for you, so you will be able to use that. Right? Do your headers. Remember, the headers are going to be bolded and centered. And introduction is going to be at the top, is going to be bolded and centered too. So make sure that you follow these steps. If you follow these steps, I guarantee you your rewrite or your edit is going to be very, very short. If you have any questions about the paper, please feel free to email me or call me and we will discuss it. Do not just think that you can put together some type of paper and that it's going to fit the criteria. Other readers, other professors read these, and so this is really a very critical aspect of your education, and Dr. Santi takes this very seriously. And since this is your last product that you're going to be producing for Chaminade, let's make it count. So I'm here to help you, and I look forward to these papers. I think that this is such a great topic. I know you guys are probably a little bit tired of all of this, but think of it this way. This paper is going to tell why you learned what you learned and why it is important to know what you learned as you go out into the world to help other people. So without further ado, I will say good night, and again, call me if you need any help, or just text or email me, or just email me. Thinking of my kids texting. Okay, so have a good night, and I hope you all do very well, and I look forward to reading the papers.